الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So I welcome all of you here this afternoon, and for those who are going to Turkey, I say Mubarak on a great holiday, inshallah. And those who are not going, inshallah, definitely you should plan a trip to Turkey. So Turkey is definitely a country, I wouldn't say that every Muslim should visit, but every person should visit. It's one of the most visited tourist places in the entire world. It's a very tourist-friendly country. It's very welcoming of the tourists, and there is more than enough there for tourists to enjoy. It's one of those places where everybody who goes there enjoys it. Some countries are not like that. So people go to a particular country, some people enjoy it, others don't really enjoy it. But Turkey is a place, whoever's been there will always tell you that they loved it, they enjoyed it. So inshallah, in my talk this afternoon, I will be highlighting some of the main sites and history and places to see in Turkey, to give you all a nice overview and background of Turkey. Because it's very important when you go to a particular country, you know where you are going. Often we go to a country and we know very little about it, and maybe we learn a little bit on the side while you are there, and oftentimes it's only after you come back that you actually learn everything about that place, and they're like, oh my God, I should have known this when I was there. Why am I learning about it now? So therefore I always advise people who travel that do all your research on the country you're going, read up on it, and history, culture, arts, tourism, so that you can make the best out of the place. Don't just wait for your tour guide to just spoon feed you everything, and that's it, and whatever he doesn't tell you, you don't know about it. Do your own research, obviously you follow your tour guide, but it's always good to know your own stuff, because the tour guide might not be able to be with you all the time. The tour guide might not be able to take you to all the places. There might be also certain places that you are going and with the tour guide that might not be of that much of an interest to you, while there might be other places that you may have a particular interest in. Sometimes people are into something, and that might not be on the list, but that's what you are interested in visiting. You're an artist, you want to go see the art festival, maybe the rest of the crew doesn't want to go there. So it's very good to do your own research also and be clued up. Also, it's very important to understand the history, the culture, and a little bit of the politics of the country that you are going, so that you are aware of the landscape, you're aware of what's going on there. So you don't find it surprising. Often we go to certain countries and we see stuff there, and we sometimes get shocked at what we see. And that is because we are not aware of the history of the place, and what has happened and what went on and why what's happening is happening. So it's good to know all of that. So to start off with the history of Turkey, of course, Turkey's history goes way beyond Islam. Turkey was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire long before Islam came, and the city of Istanbul, which is the crown, jewel of Turkey, the main city for tourism. It's not a capital, but it's used to be a long time ago a capital, but it's the main site for the tourists. Its original name was Byzantium, and it was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines were Greek-speaking people. They were Orthodox. At that stage, they were pagans. It was part of the Greek Empire. Then Byzantium remained the capital city of the Greek Byzantine Empire for a long time. It was one of the most powerful cities in the world at that time. We're talking about now, about 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Okay, so that's how ancient it is. And afterwards, one of the kings of Byzantium, his name was King Constantine. He converted to Christianity at the hands of some of the disciples, apostles of Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, some of his murids or their murids. They managed to convert Constantine to Christianity. Some of their tombs are still there, some of the Christian saints. There's a strong Christian legacy there also in Turkey. You find people who go from the church and stuff, they particularly go to certain places in Turkey to visit certain Christian kramats. Okay, there is something called a Christian kramat, Saint Peter and Saint Paul and Saint this and so on. So he converted to Christianity. When Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity, he renamed Byzantium as Constantinople. So for that period of history, for at least 1,000 years in history then, Byzantium, for the first 1,000 years the city was known as Byzantium. Then the next 1,000 years the city became known as Constantinople. So if in all the old big books of history they talk about Constantinople, the city of Constantine. And what he did was that there was a great pagan temple there in Byzantium, massive pagan temple. When he converted to Christianity, he converted that into a Christian church. He made it into a massive church, a cathedral. A very big church is a cathedral. He made it into a cathedral, and it became the seat of the Eastern Orthodox Church in Christianity. So the big split in Christianity was the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. The Catholics and the Orthodox. And if you want to know how big the Orthodox Church is, it's just enough for you to know that Russia follows the Orthodox Church. That's a lot of people. Okay, the Russians are all Orthodox. The Greeks are Orthodox. The Armenians are Orthodox, and so many, the Serbs, the Yugoslavs, Eastern Europe and all that, they are all Orthodox. They're not Catholic. They don't accept the Pope. The Pope means nothing to them. It's like Shia, Sunni, all these things that we have in Islam, also division. So they got the Orthodox Church. The seat of the Orthodox Church was Constantinople. The Cathedral of Constantinople was like the Vatican in Rome. The Vatican is the seat of the Catholic Church. And yes, like the Muslims like to fight each other, they also had many wars amongst each other. The Orthodox and the Catholics went to war against each other. They are both Christians, but they have differences of opinion on certain matters. So you'll see the relevance of all this very soon, because unless you're thinking, why am I getting a lesson on Christianity here? I want to hear about Turkey. So it's directly connected to Turkey and Muslim history in Turkey as well, because so Constantinople became the seat of the Orthodox Church in the entire world. The great cathedral, the Patriarch. The head of the Orthodox Church was called the Patriarch, while the head of the Catholic Church was called the Pope. The Orthodox Church, they spoke Greek. The Catholic Church, they spoke Latin. So there was a lot of wars between them. But this was the situation when Islam appeared. So when the Nabi Muhammad ﷺ was born in Arabia, that was the situation. The Turkey and those regions were all under what they used to call the Eastern Roman Empire, the Orthodox Church. And his birth was felt in those places. There were signs that happened in that time. And in the time of Sayyidina Umar, the Muslims conquered a lot of the territories that were ruled by the Orthodox Roman Church at that time, particularly Palestine and Jerusalem. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam predicted to his ummah that he said, لَتَفْتَحُنَّ الْقُسْطَنْطِنِيَّةِ فَلَنَعْمَ الْأَمِيرِ أَمِيرُهَا وَلَنَعْمَ الْجَيْشِ ذَلِكُ الْجَيْشِ. He said, my ummah will conquer Constantinople. He told the Sahaba. And he said this to them at a time when they were being under siege in Medina. So they are in Medina, they are under siege by thousands of kuffar from all sides. They are fighting a fight for survival. They don't even know if they're going to make it. Many of them literally thought that this is it, this is the end, we're all going to be shaheed. This is going to be the end of Islam because the forces are too big. In the middle of that moment, the Prophet ﷺ told them, don't fear. Not only will you defeat these enemies, my ummah, you will even conquer Constantinople itself. The invincible, unpenetrable capital of, the Orthodox Roman Empire. Said, you're going to conquer that also. Which was something unimaginable for the Arabs to even travel that far, let alone conquer that place. Even the Christians amongst each other couldn't conquer that place. So many wars happened and so on. The Catholics tried so hard because it was considered the invincible capital. It was surrounded by a fortress. The Constantinople was a fortress and nobody could ever conquer it. The Nabi said, my ummah will conquer Constantinople. And he said something. He said, you will conquer Constantinople. Blessed will be that army and blessed will be that general, that commander, the Amir. The word he used was Amir. And blessed will be that army who conquers it, and blessed will be the commander who commands them. So he made this prediction. In his time, the Muslims never reached Constantinople. But 50 years after the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed away, the Muslims did march towards Constantinople. The Muslim armies by that time had conquered Iraq, Iran, Syria, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt. So the next online was Turkey anyways. So they went all the way to Constantinople. Because of that hadith was motivating them. The Nabi said, you're going to do it. So they surrounded Constantinople and they laid siege to it and they put up a great fight. Even great Sahaba like Sayyidina from the Ahlul Bayt, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, and other great Sahaba, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari and so on, were all in that army. And unfortunately for that time, they could not succeed in conquering the city. The city held back. They gave them a hard fight, but they couldn't win. But there was a Sahabi there in that army of the Muslims, Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. The actual name is Khalid, but Abu Ayyub is his title. Abu Ayyub Khalid al-Ansari. He by that time was more than 80 years old. He is the one, by the way, Abu Ayyub, who welcomed the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who hosted the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his home in Medina. When the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam arrived in Medina and his camel was walking in the alleys of Medina, all the people in Medina, as he walks past their homes, they were pulling his camel and saying, Ya Rasulullah, come park your camel here in my yard and have a lunch or a meal with me or stay by me. Because where is he going to stay? He's in a new, in a new city. Come, So when they were pulling his camel like that, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, leave my camel. Da'uha fa innaha ma'mura. Leave my camel alone, for it is guided by Allah. My camel is guided by Allah. It's a divine GPS. Leave my camel, it is guided, So they left it. And the camel walked on its own, on its own. The Nabi is not guiding it. Where is he? He doesn't also know where to take it. It's going on its own, he's just on it. And it stopped in front of the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. And the Nabi said to Abu Ayyub, Allah has chosen you to be my host. I will be your guest. So he was so happy and cried and overjoyous, and he welcomed the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam into his home, and he kept the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his home there. And until the masjid was built, the Masjid al-Nabawi, and the rooms of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam next to it, the Imam's quarters, for 6 months, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stayed in Abu Ayyub al-Ansari's house. When he first came there, he had 2 floors there, and Abu Ayyub said, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to stay on the top floor. You must be above us. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I'm going to get a lot of guests. So if I stay on top, it will, encroach on the privacy of you and your family. Because there's going to be people in and out whole day, coming up and down. So I would rather stay downstairs than you and your family stay upstairs. So you guys have your privacy. Whatever goes on downstairs doesn't affect you. So So he said, whatever you wish, Ya Rasulullah. But the next morning, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saw that Abu Ayyub and his wife looked very tired. Or Abu Ayyub looked very tired. So Rasulullah said, what happened? He said, nothing, Ya Rasulullah, I'm fine. He said, but you look tired. Perhaps you didn't sleep. Looks like you didn't sleep. So he said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. Me and my wife couldn't sleep last night. He said, why? He said, we were uncomfortable sleeping on top of you. So we were on top of you, and we were just uncomfortable to know that you are under us, and we don't want to be between you and the sama. And so the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then agreed to stay upstairs. So if that's the case, then you and your wife and your family can stay downstairs. I will stay upstairs. So Abu Ayyub hosted him, and the love for the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was such that when they would make a plate of food for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they would present it to him, and he would eat, and then they wouldn't eat. They would wait for him to eat, and when he would be done with his food, they would take his plate up, downstairs to their room, and then they all eat from the leftovers of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So they tell the children, everybody, and they used to try to first eat up. Of course, they'll eat other things also, but they'll first say, finish the leftovers of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam for barakah. This is called tabarruk. Tabarruk. So they tell the children, eat from here, finish everything from his plate first for barakah. And then they would eat whatever else they wanted to eat. So this is the love that Abu Ayyub radiallahu anhu had. After 6 months, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left Abu Ayyub's house, and it was basically like there was a janazah leaving Abu Ayyub's house. They said that him, his wife, his daughters, and everybody was crying that the Nabi is going to leave their home now. And as Abu Ayyub said, those were the best days of his entire life. The 6 months that the Prophet ﷺ stayed in his house. So that was the best days of his life. That you have your Nabi staying in your own home, and the honor they had of making khidmah of him, service of him, going and pouring his wudu water, and taking his breakfast, and just being in his company. And so Abu Ayyub radiallahu anhu, but the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told him that I will leave your house, but you will always be of me. He's like, you are part of my family. So the Nabi had great love for him, and in many of the battles, the Prophet ﷺ used to give his banner in the hands of Abu Ayyub radiallahu anhu. So he was known as the carrier of the banner of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the battles, the Nabi Sallallahu used to have 2-3 battles. The Muhajirin banner used to be in the hands of Ali radiallahu anhu, and the Ansar banner used to be in the hands of Abu Ayyub, used to carry the banner, which is a very special honor that is not just given to anybody. It's only given to a very special person. So that was the mahabba that was there. After the Prophet ﷺ passed on, Abu Ayyub radiallahu anhu made a niyyah that he's going to go for jihad every year. Wherever the jihad is happening against the enemy, the Islam, against the kuffar, whatever, so he's going to go every year and join it. He made a niyyah. Every year for 4 or 5 months a year, he's going to go and be on the battlefronts. And of course he participated in all the battles with the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in Badr, in Uhud, in Khandaq, in Hunayn, and all of that, Hudaybiyah. He was there for the whole thing, because he's the first one to welcome in his home in Medina. So he participated in the battles, after that in jihad, until he found himself at the age of 81 or 82 at the outskirts of Constantinople. Now he's very, very far away from Medina. Even today from Medina, if you fly to Istanbul, it's 3 hours by plane. 2.5 to 3 hours by plane. Now Abu Ayyub found himself now on the outskirts of Constantinople with a Muslim army, most of whom are like at least half his age. It's young men from 20, 30, 40, 50, he's 80 something. But he's still there. And said even in that army, the other people used to ask him for barakah and dua, and they used to just keep him there for barakah. They even told the commander, why do you allow this old man to come with? Shouldn't he rather be at home? Shouldn't you just tell him, please, go home? He said, no, we need his barakah. So we want him, So he was there and he wanted to be there. So what happened in that siege of Constantinople in the year, is just about 50 years after the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed on. 45 to 50 years, that he got injured. He was shot with an arrow and he got injured. The Muslims could not conquer Constantinople, but Abu Ayyub radiallahu an became shaheed. So he was killed by the doors of Constantinople, by the gates of Constantinople. But as he was dying, he made it, the Sahaba, there was a few Sahaba and others and people who surrounded him. He made his last will. He said, I'm dying now, but my will to you is that you have to bury me inside the fortress. So what's your last wishes? What do you have to say? Anything to say before you die? He said, yes, my wish is that I have to be buried inside the fortress. And he said this kalima, and he passed away. So now they were in a bit of a conundrum there, like, how are you going to do this? He mujahid. He said, no, you're going to, my wish, you're going to bury me inside there, inside Constantinople. So the Muslims have lost, they haven't conquered the city, they can't enter the city, that fortress is invincible. But nevertheless, they said we have to do what we have to do for the Sahabi of the Prophet and his will. So they made a plan, and some soldiers decided, look, we haven't conquered the city, but we'll make a plan to get him inside. So they made a plan, a very elaborate plan, to climb up the walls of the city at some time of the night, in some quiet corner where apparently nobody is watching, whatever. And they managed to get into the city, and said, if we come out, alhamdulillah, if we don't come out, we die also there. But we're going to get him inside. And they took his body inside the city of Constantinople, and they buried him there. And when they buried him, they wrote a plank there in Arabic, Haza qabru Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. This is the qabr of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, Khalid al-Ansari, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and the host of the Prophet ﷺ, and the carrier of the banner of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They wrote that on a wooden plank, put it inside the cover, and they closed it up and made a little cover there, and they left. There's nothing on top. They didn't write anything on top, because if the Christians see it's a Muslim grave, they'll desecrate it, They just made a little grave and they left, and that was it. Constantinople remained a Christian city, Orthodox Christian city, for the next 500 years. No Muslims could conquer it. Many even gave up. But 500 years after this incident, another Muslim empire or kingdom rose up in Turkey, a dynasty. And that is the Ottoman dynasty. The Ottoman is English for Osman. Okay? The Osmanli dynasty came up, and the Osmanli dynasty, the Ottoman dynasty, basically was founded by Ghazi Osman. Well, they said Ghazi Ottoman, and they said the Ottomans. Ghazi Osman. Ghazi means warrior. Ghazi Osman is the son of Ghazi Ertugrul. Okay, Ertugrul Ghazi, who is, a lot of people are watching that series. Okay, who's not watching it? Raise your hand. Very embarrassed. Yeah, so everybody is watching that all around the world. Everywhere I went, I was in Turkey, I was in Norway, and England, and America. Now in this year alone, I was in many countries. So yeah, it's a good series. It's a very nice thing to watch. Way better than anything else on TV anyways. So Ertugrul Ghazi. Ertugrul was that warrior, a Turkish warrior. He gathered the tribes and all that and tried to establish an Islamic Muslim type of governance in Turkey. Then his son, Osman Ghazi, managed to conquer most of Turkey and established like a nice kingdom there, Islamic kingdom, which became later on known as the Osmanli kingdom, the Ottoman dynasty. That dynasty would become very big. It would, from a dynasty controlling Turkey, it would become an empire controlling half the world at that time. So after Osman Ghazi, his son Sultan Bayezid and Sultan Murad, and now Osman Ghazi's great-grandson was a man called Sultan Mehmet. Okay, Mehmet is basically the Turkish pronunciation for Muhammad. Okay, so everywhere in the world people have their own pronunciations. So they say Mehmet for Muhammad. To say Muhammad every time is too difficult for them, so they say Mehmet. So that's their pronunciation. Cape Town also has their own pronunciation. Hamad and So let's not be judgmental. Everybody got their own twists, to the names, So that was Mehmet. Mehmet was a young boy. His father, Sultan Bayezid, was the Sultan and controlling Turkey and all that, except his Constantinople. Constantinople was out of reach for them yet. It was across the sea. They could see it every night and day. They see the big fortress, and but it's invincible. When he was young, Sultan Mehmet, he heard the hadith of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My ummah, when they were talking about Constantinople, and the ulama at that time, the ustaz who was teaching him the deen said, but my son, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, my ummah will conquer it one day. And blessed will be that army, and blessed will be that amir. So when Mehmet heard this hadith, he said to his ustaz, he said, Shaykh, wallahi, I will be that one. He said, make dua for me. I've made the niyyah. I'm going to be that one. My father tried, my grandfather, all these kings, everybody's tried, but I'm going to be that one. And the Shaykh made a dua. He said, Ameen. May Allah make it happen at your hands. So when Sultan Mehmet became the Sultan, the king, and Sultan means king. When he became the Sultan after his father, he had most of Turkey under his control. By that time, the Ottomans, had controlled most of Turkey. And then he made his army stronger and stronger, and he trained them for many years. And they were like, for what are you training us? He said, I will inform you in time. Because what battle? Who are we going to fight? We fought most people anyways, and we've won. We are like a strong empire. But he made them very strong. And then finally, he announced his campaign to conquer Constantinople. Some people are skeptical. They said, everybody before you has failed. You're just going to waste a lot of lives. And he said, no, I will do it. And he took his armies. It was a massive campaign. It went on for 6 months. And they fought, and the cannons and the bombs from the fortress towards them, and from there, if you go to the Bosphorus in Turkey, you will see the sea. The sea surrounds the fortress of Constantinople. There's some remnants of it left, and so on. And so it went on and on and on. But the city, they held up. They held, strong. They held strong against all the fighting until they were in a very precarious situation. And there was a lot of fear, but they were still holding strong. The city was not falling. The Muslims, the Turks, were getting very restless now. They said 6 months, and we're not able to penetrate the city. So what are we going to do? Until the generals came to Sultan Mehmet and said to him that, Sultan Mehmet, perhaps we should just give up. Many have tried before. Maybe it's not meant for us. But he said, no, you are adamant. And he went to his sheikh. He was a murid of a sheikh called Aka Shamsuddin in the Khalwati Tariqa. Khalwati Tariqa is the same Tariqa that Tuan Yusuf of Makassar also belonged to. Okay, so he went to his sheikh, his murshid. He said, Ya sheikh, you have promised me a dua and everything, how can this happen? And the sheikh said, don't stop. I will continue to pray for you, but you carry on. The permission is there to you. And he then made dua and dua and dua. They said until the sheikh came to him in the early morning, the hours of the morning, still dark, and said to him that, Muhammad, Allah has given me the bishara that Constantinople will fall at your hands. You have to wait for the sign. He said, Ameen. So the generals are restless, the soldiers are restless, and everybody's getting fed up of this, But his iman was there. He said, no, this is going to happen. So he was standing there on his balcony. From the balcony, from the other side, because Istanbul is two sides, the Asian side and the European side. So he was on the Asian side, and he was looking at Constantinople. How do you conquer this city? It's the last thing left now for us. And then he saw someone shining a light towards them. There was a light shining towards them from one direction of the fortress. It's a very big fortress, a very, very one of the most powerful ever built in this world. The castle. I mean, we have a little castle here. I mean, but the one of Constantinople was one of the most mightiest castles, fortresses in the entire world. It was built so that nobody can conquer that city, enter that city. So he saw somebody shining light. There was a nur, like a light shining from one side of the city, and just like very weird. What is this? So he thought, the first thing that came to his military mind was that these are some of our spies who got into that city, and they are trying to indicate to us that perhaps we should attack from that side of the city. So he called his generals and he said to them, have you guys tried attacking the city from that side, where the light is shining, somebody is shining a light at us? They said, no. It's too difficult, or it's no point going that side and so on. He said, try that side. Go that side, where you sometimes don't expect something, nothing is there, nobody must rather, but he said, go there, where you think there's nothing. Go attack there. So then they made an attack. And lo and behold, when the attack started attacking that side, the soldiers went there and they started shooting the cannons or whatever. They saw the wall breaking that side, and the whole section of the wall fell down. That was basically the weakest point of the fortress. They were shooting it from all directions and nothing was happening. But there the whole thing broke down, and that was what they were waiting for. And then the soldiers went in the hundreds, and Allah Akbar, Allah, they entered in the night time. The city was already on its knees because for 6 months they're under siege. Already there's nothing to eat, and but they were holding on. They were just hoping that the Ottomans leave. And then, then they hear in the night time, Allah Akbar, Allah, say, what's going on? The Turks have entered. The Muslims have entered the city, and the city was taken over after that, very easily. And in the morning, when it was sunrise, the whole city had come under Muslim control, and Sultan Mehmed was going to enter the city. And the announcement was made, the preparation, the soldiers, Sultan Mehmed is entering the city. So he entered the city, and his sheikh was with him. He insisted his sheikh must be with him, so his sheikh was riding next to him on the horse. And there's a beautiful painting of that they usually sell in Turkey. You might see it like them selling it in all these, as you walk around, you see them selling. It's a very historical painting of that moment of the conquest of Constantinople, predicted by the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you see Sultan Muhammad riding on his horse with his sword, and next to him is his sheikh with a big white beard and a turban carrying the tasbih. And it's a very beautiful picture, and you see the doors of the fortress open, and the Christians all bowing like that, surrendering to him, and the flags, and it's a very lovely, a lot of people like to buy that portrait, hang it in their homes. And anyways, so he entered the city of Constantinople, and everybody, Allahu Akbar, and you get in, and he asked an azan to be made. And one of the things he did also was he announced general amnesty for everybody in the city. He said that our soldiers are not going to kill anybody or hurt anybody or do anything to anybody. He said all the Christians in the city are safe. They have a choice to either live under our rule or to live in peace as well if they want. We will not harm them if they want to leave. So most of them decided to leave, but a significant segment decided to stay. He went to the Archbishop of the city, who was the patriarch of the Orthodox Church, and he met with him and so on. And after a while, the adhan was given, and the city was converted into, a Muslim city. But then the Sultan had a meeting, and he said, I would like to award the people who helped us in conquering this city. So he told his soldiers, who were the soldiers or the spies that got into the city and waved us and showed us? So he said, we had nobody in the city. The army said, none of us entered the city. We couldn't, so it wasn't one of our guys. So he said to the Christian population, the announcement was made, whoever in the city who helped us come in from the population of the city, who showed us where to, he said, please come forward, I would like to reward you. You helped us conquer the city, I want to give you a very big reward. Who did this? Who was the one showing us the light? So again, nobody came up. But then they said, where was this? And they went to a certain place. And then when they went there, he asked the people of that neighborhood, because the light came from this side. So the people of the neighborhood came and said, came and said, that light that you saw, that was shining that night, the night before, that wasn't from any person. Nobody was showing the light, no person did that. That was coming from the grave of one of our Christian saints. There's a grave of a Christian saint, whatever they called him, Thomas or whatever. And there was light shining in his grave whole night from the night before. Why, we have no idea, but that's, miracle, that's the grave of a saint and so on. And the Christians also, the Orthodox, they believe in these things, So then there was the whole thing, and they said, but then they said, why would a Christian saint help us? How would the Christians saint help the Muslims, So they were arguing whose grave it is. They said this grave. So then he told Aka Shamsuddin, he told his murshid, he said, you need to help me now and thank the Christian saint on behalf of whoever is here, is a follower of Jesus or whatever, you got to do your thing now. So the Shaykh went and sat down and went muraqabah, rabita and so on by the grave of that saint. He sat down there, he closed his eyes and meditated, making zikr and so on. Because whoever is there, that person really helped the Muslims. So he's a wali, Whether he's a follower of Muhammad sallallahu or Jesus, but he helped the Muslims. So he was sitting there and meditating and praying. And then he got up. Suddenly the Shaykh got up and he fainted. So when he became conscious again, the Sultan said to him, what happened, ya Sayyidi? He said, this is not the grave of a Christian saint. He said, what do you mean? He said, this is the grave of Hazrat Abu Ayyub Ansari. This is the grave of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, who was buried here 500 years ago by the Sahabas. So the Christians, he said, are you sure? So the Shaykh said, the Sultan said to the king, to the Murshid, he said, how do you know that? What happened? He said, while I was making dua and meditating and making zikr, trying to communicate with the person inside here, I saw the ruh of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari appear from the qabr. He said it appeared and it hugged me and said to me, congratulations, I have been waiting for this day for 500 years. He said, congratulations, I have been waiting for this day for 500 years. So he hugged me. So he said, this is him. So they said, Allah Akbar, but then the Christians said, with all due respect, but this is our saint here, you guys are now taking our thing here. This is for 500 years, we Christians come here and we pray here and our du'as are mustajab. If our children are sick, we take the sand from this place and we rub it on them, they are healed. We put it in the water and we drink it, and this is our holy place. This is a holy man. So then they were arguing, so the king said, open the grave. Let's open the grave. So they dug the grave open, and when they dug and dug, they came down, when they came right to the end of the grave, they found the plank. There's a big plank, wooden plank, and on it, it was written in Arabic, هذا قبر أبو أيوب الأنصاري صحابي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said to the Christian, there you see what came out of this. So this is ours. And obviously they couldn't say no. They took over the place. And then the first thing the Sultan did in Istanbul, in Constantinople, is build the masjid and the maqam of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu anhu. The Karamat. He built the masjid and the tomb next to each other. And that place became one of the most famous sites of ziyarah in Istanbul. And it is known as Ayyub Sultan. The Turks call it Ayyub Sultan because they call him a king. They say Ayyub Sultan. So that's the first thing I'm mentioning now when it comes to places of visitation, is the maqam of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. It is a magnificent maqam. It's massive. It's massive. Our karamats here look like, small compared to that. It's massive. The Ottoman Sultans built it. And it is great and big, and it is from the holiest places in Turkey, and the people are continuously visiting all day and night, especially Jummah. There after Jummah it's full of people, and there's a beautiful masjid there, and you'll find after Fajr, after Jummah, a lot of the awliya and pious people and shuyukh make ziyarah there. You'll find married couples You know, it's a tradition in Istanbul. If you get married, you must go with your bride there to ziyarah there, greet there. So you find a man in a suit and a tie, and the bride wearing all the bridal clothes and just standing there. And when the children also are circumcised, they bring them there also. But they dress them up like princes. So you see a lot of parents walking around these little boys dressed up like kings, like princes, and think, what is going on? Is it like, you know, costume parties? And no, you know, they just got circumcised. So that's their culture there. But they have to bring them to Sayyidina Abu Ayyub or Ayyub Sultan. So they have a great belief in the barakah of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, and it became a practice then of the Ottoman sultans that every Ottoman sultan would be crowned or turbaned. You know, the Christian kings used to wear crown, the Muslim kings used to wear the turban, by the maqam of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. They would go there, and the sheikh of the tariqah or whatever who was in charge of the maqam there would take the sword of Ghazi Osman and hand it over to the next sultan. And he takes the turban and the sword and puts it by the grave of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari for 5 minutes. And after that, he takes it and gives the sword to the Ghazi, the next sultan, and takes the turban and puts it on his head. He says, Inshallah, with the barakah, and he takes the banner. He puts it there. The third thing was the banner. There was the flag, and they keep it there also by the maqam. And then they give the banner. So we give you the banner, like the Prophet used to give the banner to Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. So there were the rituals that used to happen during the Ottoman Sultanate. Sultan Mehmed then became known as Fateh Sultan. Fateh Sultan means the conqueror. The conqueror. He became known as Fateh Sultan Mehmed, the conqueror of Istanbul, and he is the one who was lucky to get the dua of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My ummah will conquer Constantinople, blessed will be that conqueror and blessed will be that army. So he got that. So Fateh Sultan Mehmed. His karamat is also in Istanbul, by the way, in another mosque called the Fateh Mosque. So one can also go greet him also, this great man. And after that, after a while, one thing that happened there in Istanbul, he renamed the city from Constantinople, which was the Christian name, to Islambul. Islambul. Islambul means the city of Islam. Islambul. Okay? It was in Istanbul. I'll come to where Istanbul comes into. Islambul, a city of Islam. And after a while, a few years, the church, the main cathedral had become empty. The Sultan wanted to build a very big masjid, because this became the capital city now of the Ottoman Empire. He wanted to build a massive masjid, and he was looking for the perfect spot, but the perfect spot where the church was. The church had become very empty, because most of the Christians had left. It was kind of deserted except for a few priests and stuff. So he went to the patriarch and he said to him, this church of yours, the cathedral of the Orthodox Church, I want to buy it. Sell it to us, because I want to make it into a masjid. So they thought about it, yes, no, yes. In the end they agreed, but the patriarch said, I'm willing to sell it to you on one condition. He said, yes, that the icons of Jesus and Mary that are there in the church. The Orthodox Church, they don't have idols, they have icons, pictures. You know, so they'll have pictures of Jesus, but they won't have a statue of Jesus. The Catholics have statues. And that was one of the big khilaf between the two. The Orthodox believe you can't have statues. It's haram to have statues, but you can have photos, pictures. So that was one. So he said, there's icons of Jesus and Mary all around here. You are not to erase them. They will remain where they are, because they are ancient and so on. You can't change that. So the Sultan agreed. I agree, and I will honor that condition. So the church was taken by the Muslims. They paid for it. They didn't take it by force. But the Sultan, when he built the masjid, what he did was, he renovated the church into a mosque. He put curtains by all the icons. So he didn't erase it. So what was the condition on? You are not to erase them. I stick to that. That's what the clause said. I'm not erasing them. They're still there. You can go look at them. But he put curtains all around them. So they can't be seen anymore. Because you can't pray in the masjid and you have all these icons. And then he put very big rakams all around. Allah, Muhammad, Abu Bakr, Umar, Osman, Ali, Hassan, Hussein. And that you'll find in every Turkish mosque. It became a standard stamp of the Ottoman mosques anywhere in the world. They must have these 6 names by the ceiling of the masjid, like very up. You have to look up to it, and in beautiful calligraphy, Ottoman calligraphy. Allah, Muhammad, those are the very big ones, and then Abu Bakr, Umar, Osman, Ali, Hassan, Hussein. These are, you find it in every standard, and that mosque is what is known as the Hagia Sophia or the Hagia Sophia. That place remained a masjid again for 600 years. The Ottomans after that, they conquered Makkah and Medina also. But basically the people of Makkah and Medina took them as their rulers. Turkey, Egypt, Sudan, Iraq, all these countries, everything, Jerusalem, everything was under the Ottoman Empire, the Turks. Bosnia and into Europe, and they even conquered Europe until they were at the gates of Vienna in Austria, where they had to stop, where they were defeated. So they ruled like nearly half of Europe and half of... So the Ottoman Empire was the mightiest empire in their day. And Istanbul was the capital of that empire. And there were mosques all over Istanbul, palaces of the sultans, the emperors. It was really not only the political capital of the world at that time, it was also the cultural, social capital, of arts and literature and everything. The Ottoman Empire, this was the place, Istanbul. So when they were ruling Makkah and Medina and everything, the sultans for 600 years they ruled. So the capital city of the Muslim Khilafah or the Muslim central rule was Istanbul. Istanbul was the focal point of the entire Muslim world for 600 years. So you see that everywhere in Istanbul. Then they built the palace of the Sultan, which is the Topkapi. It was a fortress on its own. More than 10,000 people lived in that palace. It had their cooks, the cleaners, the imams, everything, the Topkapi. That was the palace of the Sultan. But in the Topkapi, they'll take you on a tour of the Topkapi and you'll see how everything was there. All kind of the meeting place of the Sultan, the wives of the Sultan stayed, the children, everything was inside. The royal family, everything happened inside that. Their education, their everything. But at the Qibla section of the Topkapi palace, they had a special room which they call it the room of the holy relics. In the Qibla section of the palace, in that side of the palace where they pray. And there the Ottoman sultans had collected the relics of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam from around the world in the empire and paid the people a lot of money, and they kept it there in the most honored condition. So you have there the sandals of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the jubba, the top of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the turban of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the stick of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the ring of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, some hair from the head and the beard of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the sword of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the 4 Khalifas, and many other relics of the Prophets and the Sahaba and Ahlul Bayt are preserved in that holy room. The adab of the Ottomans for that room was such that they had ordered qaris of the Quran to continue reciting the holy Quran in that room for 24 hours. So the Quran never stopped being recited in that room, in that chamber. So one qari sits there, for, let's say for 2 hours. When he's done, then he only stops and the next one comes. The next one stands by the door and comes in and sits down and opens the Quran. When he stops, the next one starts reading, and then he gets up and leaves. And then they had paid, obviously they had paid people. Everybody had to clock in for their time. But for 600 years, the Quran was continuously recited in that room. Continuously recited in that room, in honor of the relics of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you can't just leave it like that, just lock the door. So the Sultans, and before they go for any war or any campaign, they would first come in that room and make salah and dua and ziyarah and tawassul and tabarruk, and then they go. Even the king will come with his generals and all of them, and they go in that room and make dua for victory and so on, barakah of the Nabi Alaihi Wasallam, and they go. It's very ironic actually, it's interesting that the decline of the Ottoman Empire, people bring many reasons for it, and all those reasons have some value to it, corruption and deterioration and whatever. But I always noticed that the decline started when Sultan Mahmud, there was one of the sultans, there were about more than 25 sultans, one of them was Sultan Mahmud. He decided that the Topkapi was too old-fashioned for him. He went to Europe. He went on a tour of Europe, so he went to the palaces of the British and the German and the French and the Russian and all these kings. He went on a tour of Europe. When he came back, he decided that the Topkapi is too old-fashioned. It's old school. He wants to build a new palace for himself according to the European style, the European standard. So he built a new palace which is called the Dolmabashi. That's also there, and the tourists go and see that palace also. Very exquisite, very luxurious, You can go see that. It's by the river there, by the sea, by the Golden Horn. Dolmabashi. He built that new palace, and he moved the Sultan's quarters from the Topkapi to the Dolmabashi. If you go to the Dolmabashi, you will see a big difference between the Topkapi. The Topkapi, all the rooms and the chambers are surrounded with Quran. If you look at the walls, they are just filled with Quran. The roofs, the walls, everything is just Quran. Names of Allah, names of the Prophet ﷺ, zikr, the Topkapi room, the Qasida Burda, the entire Qasida Burda is transcribed there. And it's got a very distinct Islamic flavor, which he deemed as old-fashioned. So the new palace, if you go to it, the Dolmabashi, you won't find any of that there. You will just find portraits and statues and, the European, you feel like you're in a French or a German, British type of, palace. Because he wanted to now be like the Europeans. Interestingly, we see that the decline of the Ottoman Empire starts from the time of Sultan Mahmud. And some of the shuyukh used to say is because they distanced themselves from the relics of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When they were in that palace where the Nabi's relics were, that barakah protected them, But when they left it and they went to this new modern place, now there's no relics, there's pianos and these type of things there. So the decline happened. So the Ottoman Empire, the Ottomans are the people who built the Masjid al-Nabawi, and their building of the Masjid al-Nabawi still remains.
Shaykh,
Naam? This is the Dolmabashi Palace. Yes. This is the new palace that they built about 200 years ago. This, as you say, by the way, is the Turkish style of masajid. They have a very unique style of the minarets that they built. The Turkish minaret is very unique. And you see it all over the city of Istanbul, the city of the 1,000 minarets, as they call it. So you have a lot of beautiful masjids in Istanbul. One of them, by the way, that you should also visit, is considered the most beautiful mosque in Istanbul, is the Suleymaniye Mosque. Suleymaniye by Sultan Suleiman, who was considered arguably the greatest Ottoman emperor, Sultan Suleiman. So the Suleymaniye Mosque, there is also what they call the Blue Mosque. The Turks call it Sultan Ahmad, but the Europeans called it the Blue Mosque. But the Turks call it Sultan Ahmad. That's also another most amazing and breathtaking masjid that you should definitely visit. That one is the Suleymaniya there, right on top. You can see it, it overwhelms the whole city. So these mosques, it's not just a place you go pray, of course, there, but they are just extraordinarily beautiful. It's more beautiful than anything you would have ever seen before that. These are so beautiful. It's so awesome. You become in awe of them when you go to these masajid and you look at the beauty, the calligraphy, the Ottoman architecture. And they didn't build masjids, every masjid on their own thing. They had one pattern that they followed in all the masajid. So it's very, very beautiful. Turkish Islam is a very spiritual, tasawwuf inclined Islam. They like their azkar. They're very respectable. They have a lot of adab and so on. You will even find by the mazar of Sayyid Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, ladies that don't wear scarves and all that, but when they come there, they will immediately put it on. They will put on the scarf and all that, then go in and make the ziyarah, and they take it off and they come out. But they have a lot of respect. They are very respectable people. Now, to come to the third section of the Turkish history, I talked about the Christian, the Ottoman Empire. In the last 100 and 200 years after the Sultan Mahmud came and the Europeanization and all that, the Ottomans have become weak. Anything that is 600 years old becomes weak. That's just, age. You age. So they had become weak and to a certain extent corrupted, and a lot of problems happened, and the colonialist age of colonialism started. The Europeans, the Russians, the British, the French, and they started taking over the entire Muslim world from the Ottoman Empire until everything had been taken from the Ottomans. Makkah, Medina was gone, Palestine was taken over by the British, Egypt, Iraq, Bosnia, everything. Basically the empire shrunk until the only place left under the Ottoman kings was Turkey itself. All the territories had been taken by the European forces. Only Turkey was left. And then within Turkey, a movement started calling for the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman dynasty, saying that we don't want a kingdom anymore. We don't want a monarchy. We don't want kings anymore. We don't want this family ruling over us anymore. They've been ruling for 600 years. And you can kind of relate to them. If one family ruled for 600 years, people do get fed up. So they said, we don't want this family anymore. And they want a modern system. We want a democratic system. We don't want these kings anymore. Some of the kings had become very bad and very oppressive also. But be that as it may, so we find in the early 1900s a revolution taking place in Turkey. It was led by a man called Mustafa Kemal. Mustafa Kemal. This man was one of the major generals of the Ottoman Empire. And he was the one that defeated the Greeks in a very famous battle called Gallipoli. And he became a hero of the Turkish people. On behalf of the Ottoman Empire, by the way. But when he became too strong, he then became the main guy to decide that it's time to get rid of the Ottoman Empire. And all the people joined him and so on. And eventually, I'm not going to go into all that history. It is not a history lesson. They decided to overthrow the Ottoman Empire. And the last Sultan, Abdul Hamid, was forced to exile. They took over the palace and told the Sultan and his family, you guys have 48 hours to leave Turkey. This is the end of you and your dynasty. It's finished. Turkey is no more ruled by you people. Leave. So they left Turkey, and Turkey was turned into what they call today the Republic of Turkey. It's no more the mighty Ottoman Empire. Sultanate Aliya, Osmanliya, the sword and the ruling over the whole Muslim world and all that is finished. He said, this is now the Republic of Turkey. Going to be a democratic republic, but it wasn't simply of turning the country into a democratic country from a kingdom. It was much more than that. Mustafa Kemal and his cronies and the people who were with him, they had a very radical agenda. Their agenda was, and it's very important you know this, their agenda was to convert Turkey into a European country. They said, the reason why Turkey is behind the rest of the world, by that they mean Europe, is because we have for too long been following the East. We've been too much with the Arabs and the Muslims and, our whole Islamic heritage has kept us behind. Whatever, well, that was the past. The future is European. If we want to be in par with Europe, then we must be Europeans. And why must we be Muslim anyways? We are white. We are already European, we are white. We're next to Europe. Turkey is kind of like part of Europe in a way, We are white. We are Turkish. And then his whole agenda then was that he needs to convert Turkey from Islam into Europeanization. And he was extreme in that. So he went on a very vicious campaign of Europeanizing Turkey and cutting their ties to their Islamic past. So he changed the Turkish letters from Arabic to English, European letters. They used to write the Turkish language in Arabic script before. He made it into English. He banned the wearing of these hats. This was the Ottoman hat. He banned the wearing of any Islamic hats, any kufiyas, topis, banned. And he prescribed the European hat. He banned hijab in all public places. Banned hijab. He said, I don't want our women to cover their heads anymore. He locked up most of the masajid. And he announced that the azan must be given in Turkish and not in Arabic anymore. He said, we're not Arabs. And he closed down all the Quran schools. He said the children must not waste their time learning all these things of no use. They must rather learn French, teach them French. Why are they learning Arabic? Why must my children go learn Arabic? Let them learn French, English. He changed the holidays from Friday to Sunday. He changed the calendar from the Islamic calendar to the European calendar, the English calendar. And he went on a complete Europeanization of Turkey. He banned the usage of Islamic terminologies. He closed up all the dargahs and the mazars and the kramats. He locked them all up. He said, I don't want people going to these graves anymore. And he opened a lot of bars, a lot of pubs, a lot of khamar. He promoted khamar a lot. He promoted European men and women and intermingling. And He copied the whole European model lifestyle, lock, stock and barrel, and he enforced it, basically by force on the people of Turkey. There's not to say he didn't get opposition. There was a lot of opposition. Obviously, Muslim country, but he was ruthless with the opposition. He would gather a whole lot of alims for a meeting, and then he would just get them all executed. He calls them all for a meeting. He said, I want to meet all of you guys, and they all come. Then he comes and he orders the soldiers to arrest all of them and execute them all, shooting squad. He said, we don't want to talk to these people. You must just get rid of these people. So he was he was a shaitan, you could say, evil man. But also, to be honest, he had support of many people in Turkey at that time. There was a whole trend at that time going in that direction. And he was renamed as Ataturk, which means the father of the Turkish people. Till today, he is considered the holiest figure in Turkey, in Turkish politics, at least according to the Turkish constitution. To insult Ataturk puts you in jail for 3 years. In Turkey today, if somebody writes an article in the newspaper and insults that man, you can go to jail for 3 years because he's considered the founder of modern Turkey. You will find his statues in a lot of places in Turkey. You will find his pictures in a lot of places in Turkey. The old airport was named Ataturk Airport, and you'll find that a lot of places. So he is a creator of modern Turkey. So if you go to Turkey today, you will find that a lot of the population there is extremely Europeanized. That you won't even know if they are Muslim. You think they're just normal white people, kuffar. They're drinking and wearing all these short clothes. The women are completely open and khamar being sold, and you find a lot of things that you'll be very shocked to see that in a Muslim country, and you would be like, are these people even Muslim? They don't look Muslim at all. This guy is sitting there, and the woman in a short skirt, the wine is in front of her, a boyfriend is sitting with her also, wine and everything, and music, Western style. But guess what? She's a Muslim and he's a Muslim. But they're completely Europeanized. So that was the influence of Kemal Ataturk. That influence, and it was an influence that was forced on the people. The schools were forced, the offices were forced to serve khamr. Opposite, the schools were forced to intermingle the boys. They banned any school that separates boys and girls. They said the boys must mix, and dancing and singing must be taught in all the schools as a compulsory subject. All girls must learn how to dance, all boys. So he was crazy, he wanted to completely wipe out Islam. So here you might ask a question, how did Islam even survive if you had a ruler like that? Well, Turkey, had a lot of awliya, a lot of shuyukh, a lot of pious people in Turkey. And even in the darkest days of the secularization of Turkey, many pious people in Turkey continued teaching Islam to the population under difficult circumstances. That is something we can relate to in Cape Town also, in our own history of slavery and those days. They had many people, we had many tuans, pious people who continued. They used to have private Quran schools in their homes, quietly, secretly. Many shuyukh, I can't even Sheikh Badiu Zaman, Saeed Nursi, Sheikh Suleiman, Hilmi Tonahan, so many shuyukh. That's the whole history of them. And they continued teaching their underground. And despite Ataturk's forced secularization, a large segment of the Turkish population remained pious, remained steadfast on Islam. And they played along with Ataturk outwardly, but they remained strong on Islam. But in the last 20 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had been merciful that in the last 30 years, Islam has once again resurfaced in Turkey, and with the coming of Erdogan to power and his party and the Islamic people, after 70 years of oppression, the practicing Muslim people have come into government in Turkey today. To the point that the first lady of Turkey, the president's wife, is a woman in hijab. While under Ataturk, a woman in hijab will not even be allowed to enter into a government office. Today she is the first lady of Turkey. So Ataturk's project failed to a large extent, and it's failing even more per day. It's going down, because more and more people are becoming more Islamic. So if you go to Turkey, you will find a lot of Islam. You see the masjids are full, and there's a lot of women in hijab, you'll see. But at the same time, you will also find the influence of Ataturk. There are those who are also not in the Islamic line. But both are Muslim. This is also Fatima, that is also Fatima, It's good to understand that history so that you can, when you in Turkey, and interestingly, even the ones who are not in that hijab and all that, it doesn't mean that they hate Islam, They just westernized the way they are, but they also have a love for Islam. Like we were in a hotel and our reception lady was also one of the very westernized, Europeanized. You can see the whole, even more European than Europeans. That even the Europeans are not so dressed up. They're very fashionable, extremely fashionable. The modern ones, the European ones, the Europeanized ones. So this lady was there, and you can see her name is Aisha, whatever, Turkish, So she asked us, where are you guys going today? So he said, we going to Ayub Sultan. Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, we're going there for visiting, praying, salah, whatever. So she said, pray for me also there. So we go to Ayub Sultan, said, pray for me too. So it's not to say because they are very Europeanized outwardly, they know their history and it's in their veins, it's in their blood, Their forefathers were the warriors of the Ottoman Empire, So they are proud of it and they'll have that, in them. So that's where Turkey stands today, but today the government is very pro-Islam. After 100 years, the government today is a very pro-Islam government. So in Turkey, to come to the last part of this discussion, we can talk on and on. There's beautiful history in Turkey. The masajid are very beautiful. There are palaces that are very beautiful to see, the Topkapi being, and also the Dolmabahçe is good to go see it. Also there are museums there which have the relics and so on that you can see. Of course in the Topkapi museum, you see that the relics of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that obviously you can't miss to go there and do a tour of the Topkapi, especially the relics room. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, you can go there for Jummah, after Fajr, you can go. When I go to Istanbul, I must go there 2 or 3 times. I don't feel full by one visit, But that whole area is a very beautiful area, by the way. The area of Ayyub Sultan is a very Islamic area, and there's just a lot of good feeling there, because like you are hosted by Abu Ayyub. So it's a nice place for shopping for a lot of Islamic stuff. If you're looking for Ertugrul hats and Ertugrul kind of things, you find a lot of that there. Turkish scarves and Turkish abayas, and Turkish clothing is very nice, particularly their scarf and their abayas or their overall jackets for women are the best in the entire Middle East. You'll see the Turkish women when they wear the long coats and all that. It's very beautiful and it's amazing. And you don't get it in Cape Town. So it's lovely stuff there. The Turkish lira is a bit expensive, the prices, but you can negotiate. In fact, you have to. In Turkey, on any shop you go to, you have to bargain the price. You can even get them down to 50%. So don't pay them the price they want. You like that abaya, that nice coat, that pink and blue and with nice buttons, and this is perfect for the Cape Town winter, and it's lovely. It's something different also. Everybody's going to look at me and say, where you got this from, But you can, if it asks you 400, you must get it down to 200, They know the foreigners. That's how it is in the Middle East. Turkish nuts, honey, these produce that they have are very good also. It's good to get all those type of things back there. It's very, very good. The fruits are nice, but the fruits are not something you can bring back. You just enjoy them there. There's strawberries and there's cherries and these type of things. Turkish coffee is unique, but it's an acquired taste. Not everybody likes it. I love it. But one shot of it can, it keeps you up for long, It's very, thick and sour, but it's very nice. Turkish tea is very nice. That everybody likes it. It's everybody. Their breads are very nice. Okay, I like to talk about cuisine also, because we can't just see, because the mouth also, my hat, Their pastries are very nice. So don't go to Turkey and just look for the McDonald's. They do have McDonald's there. And once in a while you do list for the McDonald's and you'd have it, But explore, I always tell people who go to countries like that, explore the cuisine of the country. Go buy, go. If you see that pastry shop, go in and buy. And pastry shops in Turkey are something else. There's nothing like it in Cape Town. Sorry, Cape Town, but there's nothing like it here. Our shops and bakeries are nowhere near what those people have. You walk in there, you're like, wow, look at this, Look at the stuff they have here, It's rich, it's amazing, the styles, and it's tasty, So you buy all these things, the kunafa, the baklawas, those are the two things but buy what you don't know. Food-wise, I mean, their kebabs, Turkish kebabs are well known in the entire world. It's everywhere in the world. I was in Norway and they had a Turkish kebab shop. So there's different types, and their food is a little bit bland. Yes, the rice and stuff, they don't have curry and stuff. But one thing also very nice in Turkey is their soups. The soups are very good in Turkey, especially their lentil soup, their sesame and whatever. They make very good soups. Their tomato soup, they are just they're experts. And the soups from Ottoman times in the palaces, these cuisines that they have are coming out of the Ottoman palaces. They were served to the emperors, the sultans. So enjoy all of that. I just wanted to speak just in the end a little bit about Konya, because you are going to Konya. It won't be too long, but Konya is where you find the maqam and the tomb of Hazrat Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, or the famous poet who is known as Rumi. He is the best-selling poet in the European world today, in America today. The best-selling poet is a Muslim. And guess what? Most Americans don't even know he's a Muslim. Or they're all calling him Rumi. You tell them, do you know Rumi was a Muslim? Oh, wow, really? They don't even know. They just thought it's some exotic something from India. He was a Muslim scholar. And by the way, he used to be a very strict Maulana at one stage of his life, before he turned to Sufism. How he turned to Sufism it's a very interesting story. He was a normal Sharia Sheikh, an Imam, a Sheikh, Mufti. This is haram, that is haram, this is, and Hajj classes and marriage classes, He wasn't into zikr and all the spiritual and all that. He was just in the book knowledge. Okay? He knew the book, he didn't know the author, That's so he just knew the book. So the awliya are those who know the author, Did you know the author also? The Quran, who it came from, Allah, So they don't have a connection with Allah, they have a connection with the Quran. So he was a sheikh like that, he had hundreds of followers, when he used to sit in the masjid there, thousands of people followed. And but just before I forget, Kamal Ataturk renamed Istanbul into Istanbul, which means the city. No more the city of Islam, the city. He called it the city. He didn't want it to be called Istanbul anymore, the city of Islam, So now it's the name that stuck to it today is Istanbul. So 4 names, Byzantium, Constantinople, Istanbul, Istanbul. So that is the history of the city. When you go see the city, you see all that around you. The influence of all of that. There might be a bar here, there might be a masjid here, there's a cathedral here. That's the history of the city. That's the beauty of the city. And so Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, he used to give the dars every day. There are thousands of followers in the masjid. One day when he was, every day when he goes past, he goes home, there used to be a Sufi sheikh sitting there next to the river bank, a pond of water. His name was Shams Tabriz. Shams Tabrizi. Now all the people they come to Rumi for the dars, for the marriage class, the fiqh class, the Hajj class, whatever, Arabic class. But after that, lot of the people who sit in his class, they're sitting by that guy, Shams, asking him for dua. They go to him for dua. Sheikh, make dua for this, my son, and he's blowing on that and mantraing that one and putting it on. And now Rumi would become very jealous of that. He sees that, and he's like, and he tells some of his very strong followers, students, he said, why is it, ya Sheikh, my son, why is it that they come to me for the class, but they go to him for dua? Why don't they ask me for dua? When he wants a question of Sharia, he comes to me. But when if something is halal and haram, they ask me. But when that guy's son is sick, he goes to Shams. Shams, please blow on him and pray on him. Why don't they come to me? He said, no, I believe he's a wali. That man is a wali of Allah, That man is not a mufti or a shaykh. He can't answer any questions, much questions. But he's a wali. So Rumi would be very jealous of that. So every time he rides past, he sees this guy sitting there. So one day, he decided, what, let me go check this man out. There's no harm. Let's go check him out. So he got off his horse cart and the students are walking with him, the big sheikh with the big turban. Goes there, Salam alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. He sits in front of that Sufi Sheikh Shams. So Rumi was carrying a lot of books. He was carrying his book that he used to teach from. The main book, it's got all his information and knowledge and notes and all that. Those days you don't have printed books, it's handwritten. Shams said to Rumi, what do you carry? What's in that book? Rumi said it's a knowledge of Sharia, you won't understand it. He says, okay, it's knowledge of the Qal. He said, it's Qal, you won't understand it. Qal means Qal Allah, Qal Rasul, the Sharia. He said, the knowledge of the Qal, so he said, you won't understand it. So it's okay, because he was not a very educated man. The Shams wasn't known to be a sheikh or anything like a alim or whatever educated. He said, oh, okay. He said, can I touch it? Okay, yeah. So Shams took the book. He threw it in the river. He threw it in. That's my book, all my notes over the years. That's your laptop, that's your iPod, that's everything. Those days, everything is handwritten. My home, everything. It's like your whole data crashed, everything in it. He said, how could? He said, your knowledge. Shams said, your knowledge is lost. He said, don't insult me. Allah, I knew this man is a madman. I shouldn't have come to this mad character. Look what he did. Shams said, calm down. Then Shams said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and put his hand into the river where he was sitting, and he pulled out the book. And he said, here's your book back. And there was not a drop of water on it. Completely dry. Nothing, it wasn't even wet anywhere, it was just dry. Now Rumi is shocked. He's like, what is this? He said, this is hal, you won't understand this. He said, that was qal. He said, I don't understand that stuff, You won't understand this stuff, my brother. He said, you won't understand, this is tariqah. He said, that was sharia, you didn't understand, I don't understand it, right? This is tariqah, you won't understand this. Meaning, I have a state. Hal means state. He said, I have a state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I say, Ya Allah, can you take this book out for me, safe and sound, Allah will do it for me. That is his relationship with Allah. The Nabi said, there are people in this ummah, if they ask Allah for anything, Allah will give them. He said, that is my relationship with Allah. Allah can, didn't Allah take Musa alayhi salam and Yunus alayhi salam out of the ocean? So Rumi was just, after that incident, he went crazy, He was like, all the years I've been teaching and all that, but I don't have what this man has, If my book drops in the sea, it's gone. I can't say, Ya Allah, take it out for me, it's not going to happen. What is it what secret that this man carry that I don't have, with all my Sharia and all my degrees and how many years I studied in Saudi and how many years I studied in Egypt, what this man has. That is the sainthood, wilaya, the friendship of Allah, awliya Allah. When Tuan Yusuf was brought to Cape Town and the water was finished on the boat, he said, wait, he recited something and he spat into the sea and he told them, take the water out from the sea, and the water was drinkable. The whole people survived because of that. Because all the drinking water was finished on the boat, which brought Shaykh Yusuf here to Cape Town. So the awliya Allah, they have that barakah. So then Rumi decided to leave all his dars and everything. He told the students, I'm closing up my dars and everything. I'm taking off my jubba and my turban, and I'm becoming a murid of Shaykh Shams Tabrizi. So he became a murid of Shams Tabrizi, and he said, I want to leave everything. He went to Shams, he said, Shams, I have given up, I want what you have. Shams said, you want what I have? Do you know what I have? He said, no, but whatever it is, I want it. Shams said, I have Allah. I don't have anything, I have Allah. That's all I have. He said, what must I do to get it? Shams said, give up everything else. If you want him, that's a jealous one, give up everything else. You have to give up everything else. So Rumi said, I give up everything else. He gave up everything else in such, in a way that his own students and family started hating Shams, In fact, his own son tried to kill Shams Tabrizi. He said, this madman has turned my father into a madman also. My father used to be a big sheikh in a masjid, everybody's coming, giving him a lot of money and thousands of people honoring him. The king is calling him in the palace. Now look at him. There's one madman, and my father is another madman walking behind him. He walks with the tasbih and he walks behind him like a murid. Look what he did to my father. They tried to kill Shams, That's how Rumi became a follower of Shams. But nevertheless, be that as it may, he spent many years with Shams until Shams radiallahu anh handed over the secret to him and said, Rumi, you are now full. You are now a man. And I'm leaving this world and I'm transferring our secrets to you. And you are now the sheikh. And he appointed him as the sheikh of the tariqah. And when Shams passed away, He left the country and he passed away somewhere very far away in Afghanistan and that side. And then Rumi became the big wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and became the Sufi. And then the fame and the name that Jalaluddin Rumi gained as a Sufi, it was leaps and bounds more than what he had when he was just a normal sheikh. He became the great renowned saint Rumi. And then he started expressing himself in poetry. So he wrote this poetry called the Masnavi. And that poetry, which is just wisdom, spiritual wisdom, one way, it's considered the greatest poetry ever written in the history of mankind, amongst the greatest ever written. People said if there was another Quran in this world, it would be the poetry of Rumi. Because it's only about Allah. And he wrote that, and today it was translated into English by a man called Coleman Barks, and it became the best-selling poetry in America. In English, not even the language that Rumi wrote it in. So Rumi became the biggest wali of his time, and whenever people would come to him and say, "You are a great wali and a great sheikh," he would say, "If I had not given up everything in front of Shams, I wouldn't be where I am today. First I had to make that sacrifice in front of my sheikh, in front of Shams radiallahu anh. I had to go to Shams and give up all my ego and pride and all that. First you have to give up, you have to become nothing to become everything. Give up everything to gain everything." So Rumi became the sheikh of his time, and he passed away. And he used to sometimes sit with a flute. He used to love the flute and sing, a song with the flute. And sometimes his murids would go in a hall and they would dance in front of him and they rotate. And that is the dance of the wailing dervishes, those who rotate, in the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when they came to him once, he said to them, "What do we do? What should we do when we are in..." So he used to tell them, "Swing in his love. Go and sway in his love." So they used to go and sway, sing La ilaha illallah and just sway. Be drown in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from Jalaluddin Rumi comes the Mawlavi Tariqa. The Tariqa that comes from him called the Mawlavi Tariqa. Interestingly, Shaykh Nazim, from his mother's side, is a direct descendant of Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi. So his tomb is in Konya, and it's a beautiful place, a very spiritual place, and you'll see a lot of non-Muslims also coming there. And they also have the zikr, of the Viriling Dervishes that takes place. So it's beautiful to go to that man, that great saint, and take from his wisdom and benefit from it. So inshallah, I'm going to stop at that. There's much more to Turkey, the ocean, and Bursa is its own, and the Golden Horn. You must take that cruise that goes around the whole city, on the Bosphorus Bay, around the whole city of Istanbul, and shows you everything on the cruise and all of that. So inshallah, your tour guide will show you, I'm sure, all of that and more. I hope you have benefited from this talk. And I think your whole perspective of Turkey now, when you go there, is just at another level, inshallah. I hope you enjoy it and have a great holiday. Shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Shukran so much.